Hey everyone. In the last number of weeks, I've been sharing the 8 elements that have helped me reimagine my homeschool life. And I'm at the end of my homeschool years. So I am sharing with you the things that really did help to shift how I felt in my homeschool, how I experienced it. And today is a special share because this discussion point is one that really instigated the entire reason that I showed up online, the entire reason that I wrote my book. And it was by far the most challenging element of my homeschool journey. And that is my big emotions. I think at the time I thought it was overwhelm. And I sat in a fruit orchard over there and wrote my book, Homeschool Mama's Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer. And I thought of myself as overwhelmed at the time. I thought I learned lessons that were around the concept of overwhelm. Maybe you could say it was frustration. Maybe you could say it was stress at times or just confusion. I don't know what to do. But all of it is to say I felt challenged about how to address my big emotions. If you haven't met me before, my name is Teresa Wiedrich. I'm the homeschool life coach, homeschool mentor, and certified life coach at www.capturingthecharmedlife.com. And I'm here to help you reimagine your homeschool life. Just 2 days from now, I'll be offering the second offering of the group coaching program, Reimagine Your Homeschool Life. So on this Thursday, September 7th, we're going to be launching, I should say, or discussing the very first session of the Reimagine Your Homeschool Life group coaching program. So if you're interested, throw a message down below, or you can email me at teresawiedrich@outlook.com. So today's discussion is about how to address our big emotions. It's something that I've built many strategies and tools around. I've often heard from many homeschool moms their various challenges, and they mostly revolve around big emotions. The root of it is not necessarily the same challenge that I'm sharing today, because we're all different, so we all have different experiences. But I have seen repeatedly this idea from our culture that says that we should help our children emotionally regulate. And of course, that's a useful tool. And I know I've been parenting or mothering long enough that I remember when I began mothering, and that wasn't a discussion point. So I'm grateful that that concept came to be, partly because the things I have been able to learn, I've been able to share with some of my kids, and I continue to. And also for me, because I certainly didn't know how to emotionally regulate. I didn't have the space when I was younger to be taught how to engage my emotions, and certainly didn't have an opportunity to emotionally regulate with someone. So when I hear the parenting concepts or the parenting coaches or various influencers around internet or through books, I hear them share that we should emotionally regulate. I say, or with our kids, I say, yes, that's a great idea, except we have one problem, and it's a really big mountain problem. We don't know how to do it ourselves. We haven't learned how to do it ourselves. I learned to do it as I homeschooled. Not ideal. It was what it was. You don't always get to choose the cards you're given, but you do get to learn how to play them. And that is what I have been doing over the last 20 or maybe fewer even years. And so I wanted to share with you a way that we could maybe discuss creating a plan to address your big emotions. But first, I'd be curious if you would put in a comment section below, what is your greatest challenge in your homeschool family life? I can tell you for sure that I did not anticipate that this would be one of my biggest ones. I definitely thought there would be other challenges like socialization. Yeah, I really thought that. I was wondering myself, what about my kids' socialization? That was one of my concerns. It isn't anymore. But socialization was one of my concerns, choosing the right curriculum or maintaining routines, doing all the right things, making sure that you figured out all the different areas that you didn't understand before you became a homeschool mom so that you could teach your kids or make sure that there isn't anything that I missed, gaps, or learning how to deliver curriculum or lessons to more than one kiddo. I had four. These were the things that preoccupied my initial journey into homeschooling. And by the point, probably year three, year four, I realized that one of the most challenging hurdles that I had was actually me regulating my emotions on challenging days or alongside challenging situations with, in the moment, what felt like challenging kids. And it was that was the most challenging aspect of homeschooling. And I've heard this as well from other homeschool moms. Now, our big emotions can come in many forms. It's not just overwhelm, it's not just frustration or stress. I often hear discussions about doubt, about whether we're doing right by our kids, or sometimes we're feeling like our homeschools aren't as worthy or as, clever or as homeschooly as others homeschools that we see or that we hear about. Sometimes we're dealing with our own internal frustration or anger, and more often than we'd like, and we don't want to be always doing homeschooling or we don't want to continue always because we're tired of feeling that frustration and anger. Sometimes we're just constantly exhausted from trying to do it all, and sometimes from trying to answer all the questions, because there are many when you have engaged younger kids. Sometimes you're managing super challenging kids who resist your plans, your cleverly laid out plans, and you don't know how to deal with that frustration. As I was speaking to one mom on Instagram Live today, she experienced a feeling of loneliness when she began homeschooling, a sense of disconnection from others who understood her experience. And sometimes, and many times, I'm having conversations with moms who've been struggling alone for far too long, feeling lost in in a life that they see is great on the outside, but it doesn't always feel like they're choosing their everyday. And so it feels like they're just kind of rolling with what is. Sometimes they're wrestling with unrealistic expectations and the feeling like it's just not good enough. Can you relate to any of these things? If any of this sounds familiar, just know that you're not just one of a few, you're one of the masses, because we all are challenged by something. Not everybody is always speaking about it or sharing what their challenges are. Certainly, I'm not suggesting everyone's challenges are the same. We certainly don't come to our challenges with the same histories, understanding about life or about the world or about people or relationships, but we all have challenges. And as a homeschool life coach, I see it regularly. This is what happens. We are humans homeschooling and humans that are on a growth trajectory, which means we are growing alongside our kids and we are having to learn some things in our lives. And so if this is you, just know you're most definitely not alone. But I've also learned that these challenges, when we are dealing with any of these big emotions, we can't pretend they're not there. Oh, we can, and many do. You can numb yourself to your reality, or you can find ways to avoid addressing the challenge that's right in front of you. But there is no way to ignore a challenge and for it to actually disappear. The key is to create a plan of action. You're never going to figure it out perfectly. There are always going to be those days, there are always going to be seasons, or maybe just a moment in a day where you say, I wonder why I engage that way, or I wonder why I'm preoccupied with this thing, or I wonder what started me on this journey to thinking or feeling these feelings. There's always more moments of self-awareness that we can gain. That's called life. That's called living, and it's called growing. But how to deal with pressure cooker days? That is the question. Pressure cooker days, or your overwhelm, your frustration, your loneliness, and all the other emotions that can come with homeschooling. You got to plan. You got to have a plan of action. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in the challenges and they're going to keep getting layered thicker and thicker and more confusing as time goes by. So, what's the plan? What's your plan to address your big emotions? That is why I invite you into the Reimagine Your Homeschool group coaching program, which is going to begin this Thursday, because I'm going to offer you tools. One of the elements of this 8-session group coaching program is offering you tools to address your big emotions. I'll give you a few here, but I'm going to say that if you've heard of the author Maya Angelou, love her. There is a quote that she shares that I just want to remind you so that you feel encouraged in your growth, not discouraged, not reminded of the things that you haven't done right, but rather encouraged. It is that do what you can with what you know, and when you know to do better, then do better. We don't always have the tools or the skills to engage in our homeschool family lives in an ideal way. We're growing, we're learning. Sometimes we just simply weren't equipped with what we now can see we really wish we had known before we began. But here's your call. This is your call. This is your opportunity to learn a few tools so you can know what to do and so that you can do better. So you're welcome to join me this Thursday, but I'll give you 3 different ideas that you can use, or 3 tools that you could use in order to establish a plan for your big emotions. The first one is to do a deep dive on self-compassion, to do some reading on that. I've got a few podcast episodes about self-compassion, partly because it's been a really meaningful aspect of my own life and in my own journey, is to do the reading deep dives to learn more about what does this even mean, self-compassion, and how can I actually include it in my real homeschool days. So I have done a deep dive of Kristen Neff's book, Self-Compassion, and I have a post or a podcast episode titled Self-Compassion for Homeschool Moms with loads of tools available there. You can find that over at my website, www.capturingthecharmedlife.com. Also, the second tool that I would give you is to turn inward. What does that mean? When you're feeling intense emotions, or you're feeling like you're doing a negative spiral of some experience that you're accustomed to, like feeling really sad or feeling really frustrated or feeling uncertain of yourself and questioning yourself all the time. Whatever the feeling is, to turn inward and say, okay, what am I feeling right now? Where am I feeling it in my body? What are the thoughts that I'm having as I'm feeling those feelings? Or what is the thought that I had before I had those feelings? What's the story that I'm telling myself? Because there's usually a story that we tell ourselves when we are thinking our thoughts. And then those thoughts create feelings, and it's just a self-perpetuating cycle. When we start to get clear on why we're thinking what we're thinking, what our feelings are, where we're feeling it, when we become self-aware, something remarkable I've noticed happens is sometimes, not always, but sometimes some of the energy around that challenge dissipates by the mere act of having seen and witnessed and heard whatever that challenge is. Sometimes, and also sometimes, it helps give us clarity in how to address whatever the thing is. So if I am feeling overwhelmed, as I was, I could ask myself, why? And for me, just a few of the things that were overwhelming me, one is I definitely didn't know how to address a certain child and how to engage her, give her what she needed at the time. But I did. I made some good choices by leaning into unschooling. I definitely had moments, there are too many moments, where I didn't know how to manage conflict with kids, and I found it overwhelming. I remember thinking that I had way too many things on my plate. Actually, I thought I had the perfect amount of things on my plate, but somehow I wasn't doing it. I wasn't present in it and enjoying it. I felt like I was just checking boxes. If a child complained or somebody didn't like what I was doing, they definitely pushed back, and it felt overwhelming. How come I cannot do everything I want to do? Those are just a few of the reasons I felt overwhelmed at the time. And when I build in self awareness practices, when I spend time turning inward, then I can ask myself, why? Sometimes it takes a little while for us to get clear why, but it's useful to learn more about the why. Sometimes when we learn more about the why, we can bring it to a coach or a therapist and explore it more deeply, come up with a plan. Also, you can do journaling practice as a regular thing, something that I've done forever. Um, I have loads and loads and loads of journals, and I think I've explored, or I've learned that there's different reasons why a journal can be really useful. But for certain, when you take what's in here and put it on a paper, it helps to clarify what you're really thinking. And you do that on routine, it feels like your brain is getting reordered. You're getting clearer on what you're thinking. So you can put it on paper and look at it and say, is that what I really think? And it just helps to clarify what's going on so it doesn't feel like a big mess inside. So those are three possible approaches to addressing your big emotions, but I have loads more. There's a reason that I have a self-compassion group coaching program that I offer in about January, February, and also why I do a lot of podcast episodes or writing posts about self-compassion, why I certainly am coaching routinely on this discussion about emotional regulation and self-compassion. If this is something that you're interested in, please let me know, because I'm delighted to walk alongside you to support you in your journey in addressing your big emotions. So I'm curious, if this is a challenge for you, would you put big emotions down below if you want to share a question, if you want to share a scenario that you're challenged by and have some interaction on that? I'd be glad to do that. And also know this, that I offer a free coaching session for the first time we meet on Tuesdays and Wednesday afternoons. If you'd like a booking link for that, you can always have a conversation with me to learn if coaching is the right approach for you to address your big emotions. I hope that you can turn this challenge into a charm. I know you can do this when you're supported, when you support yourself in your big, in nurturing your big emotions. You can do this homeschool life more effectively and more with greater satisfaction. You got this, girlfriend.